up, Mike? How you doing?
What's good? How are you?
See you at 35 West Studios.
Yes, ma'am. 35 West, where we met
I
actually,
know, yeah.
here in the heart of Bayshore, Long Island.
Yeah. First and foremost, I want to thank you for doing this, hopping on my YouTube channel.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, I've been checking out a lot of the videos on the channel. You got
Oh
some
God.
interesting content you're coming out with, so yeah, I really like what you got going on.
Yeah.
Worth subscribing if you haven't.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I guess tell some of my subscribers a little bit about yourself. I mean, obviously you're a producer and engineer, but how long have you been doing that and how did you get into it, things like that?
I've been doing it for about 10 years now.
Mhm.
I actually didn't go to school for engineering. One of my friends, Billy Hanley, went to school for it, and showed me some of the ropes at the beginning, kind of an introduction to it.
Mhm.
And I just found that I was really passionate about it. I went to school for marketing, but I didn't really want to do marketing. I was more interested in audio engineering and recording and producing and that sort of thing. So I really just dove in. I learned what I could from my friends. I learned from YouTube videos. Um, I, subscribed to some courses. Pro Audiophiles is a good website for
Mhm.
anybody looking. There's a bunch of other resources out there nowadays. And then eventually I got some internships at some studios around on the island. And I learned under some really talented engineers out here, Cove City Studios, Young Street Studios. Shout out Mike Hogan, legendary engineer.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, and then I ended up here about 3, 4 years ago, 35 West Studio. I've become the lead engineer over here,
Mhm.
recording, mixing, producing, the whole
Yeah.
shebang.
So did you start out engineering first, or did you start out on more on the production side and then switch to the engineering side?
I kind of started more on the production side. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to learn how to make beats. Always been a big fan of hip hop music.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I was interested in first. And then, over time, I started to learn a little bit more about engineering and recording. And then that, caught my attention. I ended up recording some people we knew, some friends, just for fun,
Mm-hmm.
and really enjoyed it. And then me and my friend Billy, who I mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
actually started up a little recording studio in his basement in St.
That's
James.
usually how it starts in somebody's basement.
We started in the basement, and we had Montclair Records was our recording studio.
Okay.
And we started small, but that's basically where I cut my teeth originally. I started working with local artists, hip hop, rock, some Christian music, all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. Whatever I could record, whatever I could get my hands on, just to get some experience. And that went on for a number of years. Before I ended up doing some internships to learn even more and refine my skills.
That's dope. Have you had the opportunity to work with anyone in the industry?
Yeah, totally. Currently, I'm really excited about working with Shaw Money XL,
Mm-hmm.
who's a producer and also, an artist manager, and he has an independent record label. He was the former president of G Unit Records with
Mm-hmm.
50 Cent. He's a very talented producer. He works with a lot of big artists, and I've been fortunate enough to be working with him and engineering on a lot of his projects. So through him, I've been working with some artists. I've mixed vocals for Big Crit, for Rock Marciano,
That's dope.
Cormega, um, and a bunch more, and a lot of talented and up and coming artists too that haven't really been discovered or found yet, but very talented. So it's exciting. At first, if you don't have a lot of connections, just try to work with whoever you can, your friends or anybody even if you don't really like their music, just work on it and try to make it sound as good as possible every time. Um, you know, to build more connections, you could try to intern at a studio. If you find some local studios in your area, you could just Google
Mm-hmm.
search, Instagram, see what studios are out there, what's going on in your area, and reach out to them, see if they need an intern or an assistant. Start that way, work your way up. You could try to network, go to networking events. I used to go out to a lot of shows, a lot of local shows, local artists, and just try to shake hands with people, meet them face to face, tell them what I'm doing. Say, hey, if you need an engineer, you need a studio, I'm starting out, I'll give you a great
Mm-hmm.
rate, and start that way. And then you
Yeah,
build
for
these
sure.
connections with some of these local artists, and then you never know who they know.
Exactly. And
And,
then that's how it kind of grows. That's what I was kind of saying, as far as a lot of times when people think making it big, it's like, oh, I want to produce for Drake. I want to produce for Beyonce. But a lot of times you can find like an artist or somebody who's like just starting out who could be the next Drake or Beyonce, or like you said, have connects with other like famous, so famous artists, rappers, singers. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but just to show like your mixing chain on your vocals, like what are your go-to steps mixing like lead vocals and background vocals and hooks. If someone is watching this for the first time and they've never mixed vocals, how could they get started or start that process?
Sure. So I think I'll start. You sent me over a session actually. Produce this, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I produced it. I like
Banger
mixed
Girl
it.
production.
I'm learning how to mix. So tell me, I could take some feedback on the mixing of the beat as well.
Okay, sure, yeah. So the first thing I would do, now obviously I could ask you what the tempo is and all that, but if I didn't know, and I was just recording somebody, we got the beat off YouTube or their friend sent the beat. I really like this application here. It's called Mixed in Key,
Hmm.
standalone application, and you could drag any audio into there, and it'll tell you the tempo and the key pretty quickly, and it's very, very accurate.
Got it.
So 154 E minor. So I'm going to put that into Pro Tools so everything is lined up. Now I'm loading all this into my template. So I
Okay.
think it's very important to and helpful to start with a template of some kind.
Hmm.
I think it's best to kind of create your own template, but if you're just
Hmm.
getting started, you could go online and you could buy a template for engineers,
Hmm.
put them out to sell them. Some people put them out for free, and the template helps you get going and helps you move quickly. But I think the important thing to always remember is that it's just a starting point. Everything needs to be fine tuned and changed depending on the
Got
audio
it.
and the specific track.
Now, is your template the same depending on like the genre? Like, do you have a hip hop template and like, I don't know, like a reggaeton template, or do you just kind of have
I
a
do
base
have a couple
template
of
with?
different templates, but this is kind of my base template that I usually start with. For I do a lot of hip hop these days.
Hmm.
So for hip hop and R&B, this is a great starting point for me. So first, I'm going to solo out the instrumental and just check our gain staging, check our level here in Pro Tools. And what I like to use actually, this plugin right here called the God Particle.
Hmm.
This is like a limiter. It also has some other like saturation type things built into
Hmm.
it as well. Really great plugin. And I like to click this on right at the start and use this to help with my setting my levels, my gain staging. So I'm going to
Got
play the
it.
beat and see how it's looking on these meters.
Hmm.
So now we got our beat in there. Let's just listen to everything raw real quick and get an idea of the track.
Banger girl. Murder any rapper on the beat, nobody is spared. Work hard, play hard, that's the motto. Yeah, I ball like I hit the lotto. Yeah, I make moves and bitches follow. Okay, in my DMs, he wanna suck and swallow. Yeah, shopping in my.
Is this you rapping?
Yeah.
Nice. I have a lot of plugins loaded up here for my
Okay.
vocals template. I don't always use all of these, but I like to
Hmm.
have them all available and active and ready to go if I want to use them, just to make things move quicker.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna try to just drag this main vocal track in here. Start with the lead, mute all these backings and hook for now,
Hmm.
um, and see how it's looking in the template, and see how it's hitting my plugins
And then you would tweak it as you go
and tweak
along.
as I go. Yeah.
Got it.
So you like to use a lot of plugins. Some people that's like a point of debate amongst engineers. And the other point I'll make right now is everybody has their own
Their own style.
sort of style and
Yeah.
mindset when it comes to mixing and producing, especially. There are a few rights and wrongs, and a lot of times people who break rules are the people who are the pioneers. So
For
sometimes
sure.
you have to break the rules, but it's important to also know the rules and know when you are breaking the rules.
Hmm.
I like to start with this and see how it's sounding. So first, I'm just gonna hit play and see what we got.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm gonna mute the auto tune for now. Bypass it.
Yeah, yeah. Banger girl. Big booty bitches get her money, throw your hands in the air. Murder any rapper on the beat.
Okay, so this isn't really hitting the template loud enough. So
Hmm.
hitting the chain loud enough, rather. So I'm gonna raise.
So what are you looking for as far you're looking at the gain
I
the
just
gain
went through the
reduction meter?
first compressor I have here,
Yeah, the
which
meter.
is
Okay.
this CLA 76, and I want to see if I'm getting some decent gain reduction going on. I had nothing happen.
Hmm.
I'm going to raise up the clip gain here in Pro Tools, which is really the kind of like the input gain. It happens before all these plugins, which is helpful. So this is the beginning of the chain in a way. So I'm raising this volume up going into the chain.
Big booty bitches getting money, throw your hands in the air. Murder any rapper on the beat, nobody is spared. Work hard, play hard, that's the motto. I ball like I hit the lotto.
Okay, so I'm just doing a visual check to make sure we're hitting some level, you know,
Okay.
kind of in the right ballpark. Now the first thing I heard when I raised up the gain all this,
It's like the background.
a lot of the in between,
Yeah, which is what I assume, like, because a lot of nowadays in 2023, people aren't going to studios, they're like recording in their home studios. So I would love to see how you like attack like the background noise, the humming, the hissing, and all that stuff.
The best thing to do really is to just go in and do it by hand and
Okay.
edit the audio and remove the in between space where we have this noise, because it's much less noticeable when the actual vocal is in there, you know, and everything's playing. If it's a loud banging hip hop beat like we got here, you don't hear as much of that when it's going on, but in the in between spots, you really notice it. So we're gonna have to go in, and you can use a gate to remove that, but I find it's, you know, if you want to put the time in, it's much more accurate, and it usually comes out better if you just go in and do it by hand. So I'll show you a little bit of that real quick. I like to do a little fade in and fade out to avoid any kind of not too choppy, and it also avoids any clicks and pops you might get from chopping the audio like this. Good girl. So that's nothing right there. So we're just going to delete these sections in between and just kind of clean up the audio. And this is something that I'm always doing. If you see me in a session, I'm just chopping up audio like this, because it's even if you're in a, you know, a well-treated studio, sometimes you have to do this because it just really helps get that isolation, makes it sound more professional.
Big booty bitches getting money, throw your hands in the air. Murder any rapper on the beat, nobody is spared. Work hard, play hard, that's the motto. I ball like I hit the lotto. I make moves and bitches follow. In my DMs, he wanna suck and swallow. Shopping in.
The other thing I'm listening for now is also in the audio is the breaths. So sometimes people have really loud breaths in the track and it's distracting and annoying. In your vocal, they're really not bad. They sound okay to me. I don't think I would remove them. But if there's a loud one, for instance, like this second one sounded a little bit loud, I would go in, clip it, and then just take the clip gain down a little bit on that. And manually go in and edit the audio. This is a big step for me, is going through and manipulating the audio in this way. If there's anything that's too loud or too quiet, adjust it with the clip gain first before it hits the compressors. This way you're giving it a more even signal. Everything's going to just work better plugin wise if you're feeding it a more consistent signal. The first one I got going on here, usually I have Autotune loaded up, and you could use any version of Autotune. I kind of like this old school one, but there's all different versions of Autotune out there. But the key thing you got to do is set the key. So that's why it's so useful to have this mixed in key if you're not the producer yourself, or you don't really know music theory that well. So you got to put the key in right here. That's a good starting point. Now, so on some vocals, you might want to set it to chromatic. There's different examples where you don't want to do this, but most of the time with hip hop vocals, I set the key to the key of the song, and it's a great place to start. Then we go to the retune speed. So this makes kind of the biggest difference, in my opinion, between getting a smoother auto-tune sound and more of like a T-Pain-y kind of noticeable auto-tune sound. And before we get to that, I kind of skipped here the input type. You do want to adjust this. Usually with rap vocals, you want to keep it in the low male area. But if there's singing, you know, you want to raise it up to the appropriate area. I think for your vocals, I might leave it on low male because you're kind of doing the rap kind of tone. So we'll see how it reacts to it. But this will affect how the auto-tune picks up the pitches and the vocal and how it responds.
So you usually have the auto-tune first on your vocal mixing chain?
Yeah, I like to have the auto-tune first. Sometimes I will move it later in the chain if you have a
Hmm.
very dynamic vocal, like it's a lot of ups and
Yeah.
downs. It's not going to feed the auto-tune as consistently, so you
Hmm.
might want to compress first. This looks pretty even, and I also like to even it out with the clip gain, so I'll throw the auto-tune on there first. I think the auto-tune adds it adds a sonic signature to it
Hmm.
beyond just changing the pitch. I think it
Adds
kind
a
of changes the
color.
sound. It
Yeah.
adds a color to it. And then I'll have this auto tune and I'll adjust these settings here, the retune speed, the correction style,
Hmm.
and then these are a little bit more secondary, the vibrato and the humanize. So I'll just
And
play
what are you
through.
looking for and to adjust it? Like what do you what would make you adjust it, like turn it down or boost it up?
So I'll show you. As we turn
Okay.
the retune speed up, I'll put it on stun, which is 0. That's
Hmm.
the maximum effect. Correction style on 0.
Hmm.
Humanize 0. I put everything to 0. This is kind of like, this is set to stun. So if we
Hmm.
play it,
Big booty bitches getting money, throw your hands in the air.
very noticeable,
Okay.
which you may or may not want that.
Hmm.
Some people do, some people don't. I don't think we want it that intense on this track.
Hmm.
I don't know if you do. It's your
No.
vocal. So we're going to start by turning the retune speed down a little bit. That's how fast the auto tune is reacting and changing the
Okay.
pitch.
Yeah.
So if you slow it down, this is by increasing it, you're slowing it down. And that's going to smooth out the reaction of the
Hmm.
auto tune.
Big booty bitches getting money, throw your hands in the air.
Now the correction style will also help smooth it out more as you turn this up. Uh, it's a smoother algorithm.
Hmm.
Big booty bitches getting money, throw your hands in the air. Murder any rapper on the beat, nobody is spared.
Now the humanize helps more with the tail ends of the vocal phrases.
Hmm.
If you find that it's like latching on a little too much to
Hmm.
the ending, if legato phrase or something, you can turn this up to help smooth it out. And a lot of this I kind of just learned and do by ear. That's the best
Hmm.
way to do it, in my opinion. Just
Yeah.
experiment, move the knobs, listen to it,
And just
see
see
how
what
it's
you
affecting the
like.
sound, and dial it in based on your ear. And then over time, you learn, by doing more and more songs, more and more mixes, you kind of learn sweet spots and you kind of
Hmm.
figure out what's going to work for that vocal.
Got it.
But yeah, I'll just kind of play through it and listen by ear and adjust.
Work hard, play hard, that's the motto. I ball like I hit the lotto. I make moves and bitches follow. In my DMs, he wanna suck and swallow. Sharpening my skills, I stay working hard. You know I elevate bar at the bar. I leave egos bruised and scarred. I'm the type of
So it's always good to bypass too and kind of check, see how it's sounding without it. So I don't think we want too noticeable of an auto tune setting on
Yeah.
this. I kind of want it more, leave it on there, but more just to
Like
kind of tighten
so.
it up.
Yeah.
It adds a little bit of tightness to the vocal,
Yeah.
instead of making it too noticeable. So the next thing I like to do is a de-esser right off the bat. My approach is kind of like remove the bad stuff before you start enhancing the good stuff.
Hmm.
The reason I like to put the de-esser so early is I watched a video with CLA, Chris Lord Alge, a
Hmm.
famous, mix
Hmm.
engineer. And he said that he likes to put his de-esser right very early in the chain before it hits the compressor because you're taking out the S's and the harsh frequencies before you compress it, before
Hmm.
squash it all together and bring it out. You
Yeah.
want to
Yeah. Yeah.
remove
Makes
some of that
sense.
bad stuff first
Hmm.
before it even gets there. So, and I find that's usually pretty effective. So I'll start with this de-esser. I'm just going to listen through and see if it sounds like it's too much or too little.
work hard, play hard, that's the motto.
Right now it's too much because you can see
Hmm.
this attenuation is responding very
A lot.
frequently,
Yeah.
not just when you're doing the S's, like throughout. So I'm going to raise the threshold.
Work hard, play hard, that's the motto. I ball like I hit the lotto. I make moves and bitches follow. In my DMs, he wanna suck and swallow. Sharpening.
That still might be a little bit much.
Hmm.
I do a lot of back and forth. I don't just
Hmm.
go and set the de-esser, move on to the next step, move on to the next step and call it a
Yeah.
day.
Like you do like
I'll
an
go
A and
back.
B kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go throughout the process, then go back to earlier, say, actually, we need to de-esser a little bit more, a little bit less.
Yeah. Which
So I'm
makes
going to
sense because as you're tweaking certain plugins, it's gonna bring out certain characteristics. So you'll always have to be going back and forth and like tweaking.
totally. And it's like a whole balancing act of getting
Hmm.
everything to work together the right way.
Yep.
Um, So,
Work hard, play hard, that's the motto.
so this is a solid, setting
Mhm.
for now. So we'll go to our next one. I have an EQ loaded up here.
Everybody likes this Fab Filter Pro
The Pro
Q.
Q, yeah, you can get similar results with a lot of different plugins.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a big fan of the Pro Q just because of how it's pretty light on CPU. It's pretty quick and easy for me to use. The sound is pretty clear. It's pretty transparent, which is nice. I think when you're first starting out, a good way to look at it is plugins are kind of like tools in a tool belt.
Yeah,
Like you got a wrench, you got a screwdriver, et cetera, et
yeah, for
cetera.
sure.
And you want to make sure you have at least one of each kind of tool. So you want to
Yeah.
make sure you got at least one compressor, one reverb, one delay. And nowadays, most DAWs come with at least that.
And then people say to learn learn your I don't know, your wrench before you invest in like a super powerful wrench. You know what I mean? Like learn it in the DAW you have when you're starting out before you start like investing in, because if you use a compressor in your DAW, it's going to be the same similar application in another, in a third party plugin. So a lot of people say to like try to perfect it as much as you can in your DAW, and then you can start investing in buying like the best compressors or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to do that, and there's definitely a lot of truth to that. Try to learn every plugin you have in and out and maximize it. But at the same time, there are also better
Yeah,
plugins that
sound better for sure.
that just
For
sound
sure.
better, and it's
Yeah, for
almost like a
sure.
cheat code, and
For
they just got the
sure.
sauce. Like, wow, this sounds good.